Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to On the Bright Line podcast, tales from recovering food addicts from the perspective of a physician, a therapist, and an off-the-wall storyteller. We are not affiliated or endorsed by Brightline Eating, and all content presented in this podcast represents our personal opinions and does not represent medical, nutritional, or psychological professional advice. Hello, and welcome to On the Bright Line podcast. Today's topic is going to be about non-scale victories. This is actually someone recommended this. Someone from my Instagram account said, hey, you guys should talk about non-scale victories. So here we go. We're going to talk about it. We're actually going to do we could say the top 10. They're not ranked, but these are 10 non-scale victories that we came up with that we thought would be interesting to talk about how they've affected us and how we feel about them. So the number one that I put down, and it is probably definitely my number one, the rest of these aren't necessarily ranked, but is lab values, because that is, I guess we should talk about non-scale victories before we get into this too, is like, what does that mean? What does non-scale victories mean? Because that might not be a concept that most people know about.
With most diets, right, the goal is to get to a certain weight. And so the victory is, I want to weigh this much weight.
The number on the scale.
The number on the scale. I think because BLE really is a program that is not a diet, that really just works to get you to a healthy body. I really think more about the non-scale victories, meaning it's not just about the weight, it's about the other things in my life that are better because of this program.
Right.
So it's the things that aren't about seeing a number on a scale.
Right. So the number one thing that I put down was lab values. So I think that for clinical health benefits of lowering your weight and eating this kind of diet for me has been completely reversing type 2 diabetes, reversing hyperlipidemia, I can't say the word.
Triglyceridemia.
Sure, that one.
And hypertension.
And hypertension, and totally, releasing hypertension. How do you say that? Reversing hypertension?
Yeah.
Sure, okay. So interestingly enough, when the last discussion I had with my doctor, I don't know if I even told you this yet, that when I came off, I've completely come off of, which is another one we'll talk about, coming off medication. But when we took me off the metformin for my diabetes, she's like, we can't remove the diagnosis of diabetes from your chart. So I'm like, that's fine. I mean, and I think at one point in my life, I might have had some feelings about that. And I'm like, but now I'm just kind of like, it doesn't matter because it doesn't affect me anymore. I just don't, if that's what's in my chart, that's what's in my chart, that I have controlled diabetes now, I guess, but diet control diabetes, whatever the case might be. But, that will never be removed, but that I don't really care because my A1C is normal and that's all I care about. So I don't know, any other things you want to discuss when it comes to lab values?
Well, I think in addition to lab values, blood pressure numbers, like other parameters of your health. And I think, we can just touch on the fact that not only is diabetes and elevated blood sugar very bad for your organs in the long term. The longer your organs are saturated in that sugar, the more damage they sustain that can become permanent. Blood pressure, elevated blood pressure also puts a strain on your heart, on your organs, particularly your kidneys. It can cause permanent kidney damage and eventually kidney failure and leave people on dialysis. And the combination of diabetes and high blood pressure causes heart attacks, strokes, again, renal failure, kidney failure. So when you're taking those numbers and making them normal, you are completely removing the risk of that organ damage, which is amazing because the pharmaceutical industry makes billions of dollars a year selling us drugs to counteract the effect of filling our bodies with poison, which is just so screwed up. And I have long held and long coached patients that if they cut their carbs, and I didn't really understand about bright line eating and addiction, but I did know that when I have my patients cut their carbs out of their diet, even if they didn't lose all the weight they wanted to lose, I saw this immediate reversal of the blood sugar and the blood pressure values where I was able to very rapidly take them off medication. And it's kind of shocking and really awesome.
Yeah. So let's just get into it. We'll just go down the line. The next one is getting off of medications. And so, personally having been on, a medication for diabetes, a medication for cholesterol, and a medication for
Blood
pressure. Thank you. And now completely being off of those, like done over, like I'm on 0 zip zilch nada when it comes to prescription medication. I think that, and that's, I mean, a year, like 1 year into this program. And it was quicker than that. We know, I mean, and we've talked about this on the podcast, that I was able to come off medication as quickly as like 3 months after I started, and how quickly, and granted, I am, I'm probably maybe skew a little on the younger side of the, of people in BLE, but that my body was able to reverse those effects so quickly just by taking out flour and sugar.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to say about, I mean, you just said it. I mean, you were just talking about the industry, the industry of like.
Yeah, I just think, what would the pharmaceutical industry think if everybody got on bright line eating?
Yeah.
I mean, it would just, because we have enculturated, we have normalized in our culture that everybody's on prescriptions. I mean, everybody's grandma has a fistful of pills they take every day. And how gross is that? I mean, I hate taking pills. And the fact that we've just normalized, and we say in medicine, like if somebody's on more than 2 medications, like the chance of them having a medication interaction, an adverse drug reaction from those medications interacting is like 25%. Once you're on more than 3, it's like 50%. And by the time you're on like 4 or 5 medications, there's almost 100% chance that one of your medications is causing an adverse effect because you're on one of the other medications.
Right.
And yet we all live on these medications.
Right. Or just like living with side effects of medications. Because I will say that personally, like I lived with the side effect of metformin for
nausea.
The entire, well, not that end, the other end.
Other tummy problems.
But GI problems, and convinced myself that it was normal.
Yeah.
And just the way I was going to live because I was a type 2 diabetic.
Wow, yeah.
And not having that problem at all anymore.
Awesome.
And really, honestly, once I came off flour and sugar, that problem, went away. But I think it was in direct correlation to being on the metformin as well. So, but that was just like, yep, this is what it is. It is what it is, because I had to keep my blood sugar under control. So I think that you're right that the pharmaceutical companies don't necessarily want people to be any healthier than they are currently, because that means that but I also think it's, we've talked about this in previous episode, that the food industry also is the problem too.
I'll just eat poison and I'll take poison antidotes.
Right. But I mean, again, like I just, I feel like I'm a walking clinical trial for this, is that it's just, you can reverse, you can, and I'm not saying everybody's going to be able to get off every medication.
People, I always say there are some people who just have crummy genes, and just because you need to be on medication, I will say this does not mean you're doing something wrong.
Right.
Some people, and I mean, same thing with blood pressure. Some people just inherit a bizarrely high blood pressure, and eating healthy will help it be better controlled. Being on this plan will help it better control. But some people need to be on medication, and they should be. So, and it's also not a failing.
Right.
If you're following this program and you're doing great on it, but you still need medication, it's okay.
Right.
But most people are able to reduce or stop medication.
Yeah. Yep. And so genetics obviously play a huge role in it, but I think my issues were directly related to my obesity. So, the next thing that we want to talk about is improved body pain, which I know that Bonny has a lot to say about this. Sorry, Robin, we're not trying to leave you out of the conversation, but Bonny has a lot to say about this.
So I'm in my 50s, and I was just hitting a point where every morning when I'd step out of bed, my feet would hurt a little bit and my knees would hurt a little bit. And I mean, again, culturally that seems normal. It's like, I guess I'm just hitting that age. I mean, I was still pretty active. I was exercising and pretty active, but yet still had that pain. I was like, I guess this is what my mom talked about, or this is what my grandma talked about. And within a few weeks of cutting all the sugar and flour out of my diet, like all that pain went away. Not to say that I'm an orthopedically normal person, because I'm not. I still have issues.
Wait, what does that mean?
I still have issues in my body related to prior injuries.
Right. Yeah.
But literally just the pain, I just would have pain in my joints with just getting up in the morning. That has completely gone away.
Right.
And that's been a wonderful non-scale victory.
And it's really funny. I want to say this. I don't remember what it was. It was probably like a year ago. I remember Bonny asking Robin is it normal to have your knees like knocked together, like when you lay on your side? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, because Robin's thin, and I did notice that. I wouldn't say it's a non-scale negative. Maybe.
Well, but I'm just
like when I sleep on my side, like the bones of my knees now touch, and it's uncomfortable.
She's lost so much fat off her knees.
I lost all the padding, so yeah.
I know. I just thought that was really.
That goes along with getting cold more easily.
It does.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's another kind
Some of that fat was doing something good.
Yeah, I often say now I'm like, yeah, I've lost all my natural insulation that I used to have. So, yeah, but I think I also can talk to the body pain, just not having the aches and pains of carrying around over 100 pounds of excess weight.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing. But I do also believe that. I think I was chronically inflamed. I mean, and I think I think
sugar and flour cause tissue inflammation.
Yeah, and I think
it's pretty clear.
Yeah, that chronic inflammation just caused aches and pains.
It's literally
knees.
like taking poison every day.
Yeah. And so,
delicious poison.
I notice now, like when I hike and stuff, I don't get as sore. A couple weeks ago, I hiked with an 18 and a 19-year-old, and I was number one able to keep up. I was very proud of myself. But I remember the day after expecting to like not be able to get out, like literally not be able to get out of bed. I'm like, I'm going to be so sore. We had like a 1,800 foot elevation gain, or no, it was over 2,000. It was ridiculous. Whatever we did, it was a lot. 7 miles, all these things, and I was like, I'm appropriately sore, but not so sore I can't move.
Not incapacitated.
And it was, I was like, this is a miracle. Like, I honestly felt like this is a miracle. Like, and I cannot attribute it to anything other than, because I've not been doing mega workouts. I actually hadn't hiked in a couple weeks prior to that. I was worried that I wasn't gonna be able to keep up, but all that to say, like, I was not in pain afterwards. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I think we'll skip, we're kind of moving around this list, but it's okay. So I have no idea what number we're on. If anybody's keeping track, just let me know. But the physical pursuits is one that we had talked about, was a huge non-scale victory.
Yeah.
Being able to do things that you didn't think you could do before, or that you wanted to do and never tried, or whatever the case might be. So I think for myself, obviously, as everyone knows, because I talk about it ad nauseum, is that I do a lot of hiking. And I think, that story I was just telling about being able to hike with my niece and her friend, who are 18 and 19, I want to point that out, that they were less than half my age. I was able to keep up with them, and able to, come down off that mountain and not feel like I was going to die. It was pretty amazing. And I think that looking back over the last year in this journey, I couldn't have done the things. I wouldn't have had the confidence to do the things physically that I'm doing now, and just for fear of hurting myself first.
Right.
The other thing is like the fear of like having to be drugged down off a mountain and being 300 pounds. No, I'm not even kidding. And thinking like that poor park ranger that might have to help me. Like, how are they going to, like those are, silly, it sounds silly, but it's not. I mean, those are the kinds of thoughts when you're, when you're very obese and you're overweight. Like, you think about like, oh my gosh, if I fall down, like, is someone going to be able to help me back up? Because I can't, I'm worried that I'm so big that somebody won't be able to help me get back up. So
I had set a little mini reward for myself when I hit a certain weight, that I would go get on a horse, because I had done that when I was younger, and definitely felt like at the weight I was at when I started BLE that I wouldn't be fair to the horse and wouldn't be comfortable for myself or safe for myself. I wouldn't have felt balanced enough to do that. And so that is something that I did. It was pretty neat. I mean, I felt good about it, and I felt like my body wasn't in the way.
Right.
And I was able to enjoy that experience because I didn't have the weight there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another one we have down is improved sleep.
Yeah.
Did your sleep improve?
My sleep definitely improved. I would wake up twice a night. I think just because I wasn't sleeping, I would go to the bathroom, but I don't think it was necessarily needing to go to the bathroom. But just like more waking up, not as restful sleep. And again, being uncomfortable, being in pain, kind of having joint pains and body pains.
Yeah.
I know Robin isn't on Brightline per se, like weighing and measuring her food, because she is not a food addict, not high on the susceptibility scale. But I know you've cut out sugar and flour.
Yeah.
Have you noticed some of these things just since reducing that?
Yeah, definitely improved sleep, definitely a change in my inflammation. I have always struggled with inflammation. And so for me, when I stick to the bright lines, then that inflammation goes down. And when I don't, I have a problem.
Interesting.
And it's interesting because I think it's one of those one-to-one correlations. And I have not had flour and sugar since I started, so I can't even tell you like what that would look or feel like if I did it. But that I have a healthy fear around that, and that I'm like, I'm not gonna do it because I'm scared of what I'm gonna feel like. And I think the inflammation would probably return pretty readily. Another thing, and this wasn't on our list, and I'm gonna do an aside right now, but this is really, I think, Robin, you probably have a lot to say about this or think about. Is that I was on a call the other day, and these women were talking about improvement in mental health and how quickly a woman who is suffering from severe depression, she said 14 days of being sugar-free.
Wow.
She saw marked improvement in her mental health. And is there clinical information about that?
That would be really interesting. We'll have to check that out. Like, it certainly doesn't surprise me. And I guess, Bonnie, if you're thinking about inflammation, there's inflammation everywhere.
Including in your nervous system. And I mean, I think it's kind of multifactorial, right? Like if inflammation is causing pain and sleep interruption, chronically being in pain and being sleep interrupted,
fatigue,
just from a very simple perspective, just physically feeling better helps you feel mentally better. Also, I think being lost in addiction, again, we've talked before about like it causes shame and guilt and sadness.
And negative sense of self.
And so like, I definitely have, I repeatedly heard people talk about mental clarity, like separate from mood specifically, but just mental clarity. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know what the science is on that, but it would be very interesting. I think it's multifactorial.
So that was really interesting. So I don't know if you have ever experienced this before, because even at your highest weight, you probably fit just fine in airplane seats.
I got the belt on, but I filled the seat.
Okay.
And so I definitely, and I've traveled a lot lately, and it is amazing how much extra strap I have. But also like that I used to feel like just stuck up against other passengers. And now I'm like, I have all of this personal space like in between my body and the edge of the seat that I didn't used to have. So.
And for being someone that was over 300 pounds previously, I would definitely need a seatbelt extender, which, I had a lot of body confidence. So for me, I would just ask for it, and I didn't, maybe there probably was some shame around it, but I get for people like, it's an embarrassment. And I know even I do actually follow this account, on social media that talks about travel. It's called Traveling While Plus Size, but and it talks about like strategies for people, like especially like on airlines like Southwest, and like requesting an extra seat and that sort of thing. And it's one of those things that when you're overweight and obese, you have to think about, like when you're traveling, though all these thoughts have to go through your mind about, will I fit in the seat? Who's going to be sitting next to me? Is it going to be somebody who's large as well? Like how uncomfortable is that going to be? So I think for me, I remember Chicago, when I went to Chicago last year, it was the first trip where I did not need a seatbelt extender. And I fit into the seatbelt, was still, I was still a little snug. I mean, I don't remember exactly what my weight was at the time, but I was definitely larger than I am now. I just got back from a trip. I'm like, the amount of seatbelt I have is ridiculous. And I sat in the middle seat on multiple flights, and it didn't bother me at all. And I've never been. I've always been like, I need the aisle or the window so I can lean, right? I
don't have to climb over people when I go to the bathroom.
Well, I mean, I don't feel like I still don't want to. I'm still like, hey, could you move so I could get out? But to me, it's more about like, I always felt like I needed to lean so people had space against, like, so they weren't pressed up against my body, and having no trepidation at this point at all to sit in a middle seat and just be like, I can fit in a middle seat and there's still room on either side of me and it's not a problem, it's just such a non-scale victory, and it makes traveling so much nicer. I
Yeah.
mean, so much nicer to not have to worry about that. Something we didn't write down that I was actually thinking from this trip that I just took is I was able to fit more clothes in my suitcase because my clothes are smaller.
Oh, I love that.
I put all the clothes out and I was like, are these going to fit? Like, I mean, I'm like, I was gone for 10 days. So I was like, are all these going to fit into my suitcase? And is it going to be overweight? And
Right.
And then I get them in there and I'm like, I still have room to spare. I'm like, there's just that much less fabric in my clothing now.
Wow.
So that was a huge,
that.
that was a non-scale victory.
Right.
I completely forgot about when we were making this list.
Yeah.
So another fun one to talk about is shopping. So being someone who's been plus size for the majority of my life, being able to walk into any store and buy things is very fun. Also being able to have hand-me-down clothing from my mother who has never been plus size is very fun.
Right.
My mom brought me a pair of jeans that no longer fit her because they're too big and now they fit me, which is a brand new experience for me.
I had jeans I could have given you, but they're all short people jeans.
Yeah.
Right.
While you have
Girl
lost
jeans.
weight, you are still tall.
I'm still tall.
Right.
My legs are still very long. So, which my mom has the same problem as I do. So we can wear the same clothes because we are built the same way. But I mean, we've passed a shirt. Now we've passed a t-shirt between the three of us, which is hilarious. It landed on me.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing. Not having to worry about if they're going to have my size. Like talking about like t-shirts, like thinking about going to an event or like even at work, like, oh shoot, like there's a work branded t-shirt that I need for this event. Are they going to have a size that fits me? Like I remember those thoughts going through my head multiple times before. And now it's like, I don't have to think about that, you know?
Yeah. And you were naming your rings.
Oh yeah. My rings too. My rings are falling off my fingers for sure. My wedding rings and stuff. Which is a good and a bad problem to have, obviously, because my wedding rings are very meaningful. Like my husband and I have, we've got matching rings and we've had the discussion about what we're going to do. And he has an idea of what he wants and I have an idea of what I want and they're not the same thing. So the question is do we just go our own ways at this point or is there some kind of compromise we come to?
That's funny.
Because he also needs new rings because his ring is also falling off. So,
They do make little things you can put in your
Horseshoes.
rings that take up a little space so that they can fit a little longer.
They do, but
but they're not comfortable.
it's not
for
a
me.
long-term
Yeah,
solution
no, it's
either.
not.
So, something I think that Robin, you can definitely chime in on since this has been a Bonny Meagan conversation so far, is self-esteem and improved self-esteem.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a huge non-scale victory.
Well, you just a little while ago, you came out of the bathroom and you said, I don't even recognize myself in the mirror sometimes.
Nope.
And I just love that.
I look at pictures of myself and I can't believe that it's my body. Like my face has changed a lot too. I will say that my face has changed a lot too, but it's more my body that kind of is almost startling sometimes, like how small my current body is for me. I mean, and I'm wearing a size 12 jeans, so it's not like I'm not tiny by any stretch of the imagination at this point. Who knows what's going to happen, but
Right. But, and Bonnie and I, you were naming kind of that view of self from, oh, I can't do this, losing weight is too hard. I'm someone who fails, right? I diet and I fail and I diet and I fail. And that view of yourself as being, I am someone that can do hard things, right? I have a friend that gave me a wonderful bracelet, and on the inside of the bracelet, it says, beautiful girl, you can do hard things, right? And I love that sentiment that BLE can help people connect with the fact that they are a beautiful human being that is capable of doing hard things.
And that once you... and I think this is in the BLE book, the original book, is that your sense of yourself is formed by watching yourself do things, right? And so when you watch yourself succeed at this, the story you tell yourself now is, I am a person that can do these things. Yeah. And then talk about like how that translates into other parts of your life once you change your self-image.
Well, and self-confidence is also something we had on the list, so we'll bleed these in together. So.
Right. That view of yourself as someone that, I did that thing that I've never been able to do before, right? I'm starting to master my relationship with food. And I never thought I could do that. So what else can I do that I didn't think I could do? That almost gives you the secure base to lean out a little bit from, right? To reach for the next thing. Right. And I think that's a really beautiful piece, right? Like if somebody had said to me, oh, we're going to be doing a podcast, I would have said, oh, no, I don't think so. Right. But that message that we all feel so strongly about this, and the support that we have from each other, right, has helped me feel safe to go, okay.
Robin and Bonnie have been drug along kicking the screen. I'm just kidding. They haven't. Actually, I think this was Bonnie's idea, if I have to harken back to that.
Oh, I think it was your idea.
I think it was your idea, Meagan.
Oh, no, they're lying. It wasn't my idea. Anyway, that's completely off topic. But self-confidence is definitely another huge non-scale victory. I think that people gain. I think that there's a huge stigma in our society for people who live in larger bodies, what they can do, what they can't do. I think that being able to move through the world in a body that people perceive as right-sized or not large or not overweight, is helpful to just boost confidence in general. And
I also think for me, I think about in my work, I feel more comfortable and confident in work because I've battled the thing that was my biggest, hardest thing. Also, it puts it in perspective. I've always kind of had, work is work and life is what was really important. I've always had that attitude.
Yeah.
But it's so much more so. It's like these trivial dramas at work are not nearly as challenging or difficult to handle as what I've already handled. And so I definitely have heard throughout the community many, many people telling stories about things they've done in their professional life and their career or with their passions that they just didn't really, even in the bodies they were in before, they could have tackled, but they didn't believe they could do it, or they didn't even weren't even considering trying something new. But because of the confidence that they've gained from succeeding at this, it changed their perspective. Of themselves. Yeah,
that's exactly. I was going to say perspective. Because I feel like I've had a shift in perspective for real. And in that I was very motivated and confident in work, but that I think I have been able to balance better since starting BLE, because I have realized that there is a big world and life outside of, and that my full worth doesn't come from my success at work. You know what I mean? And so that's definitely been brought into perspective for me. I've gained a self-confidence outside. I've always been pretty confident though, guys. So that's this.
But I think some of your confidence was an external show of confidence covering up an internal insecurity.
Fake it till you make it.
And I think most of us have that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I think that's the thing, is it becomes a true confidence because you now realize who you really are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still have imposter syndrome all the time.
Well, I think
Everybody does.
Yes, for sure. The last thing that we have on our top 10 list of non-scale victories is the feedback that we get from people who know us, don't know us, all those things, and how that feels, how that feels good most of the time for people to give us feedback. So
that's a dopamine hit.
Well,
right?
for sure.
Little external locus of control.
Yeah.
And I think it can be mixed, because some people who have had a history of maybe sexual abuse or trauma of some sort have used their weight, which is a result of their food addiction, as a shield from unwanted sexual interest.
From being seen.
Or from being seen.
Yeah.
So it can be a double-edged sword.
Sure.
But I think, having other people see you differently helps to validate the new self-image that you create for yourself.
Right.
And it is definitely affirming for most people.
Right.
And I think it's funny because I found some people that did not notice at all, which is interesting. And
or they didn't say anything.
Or they didn't say anything.
Sure.
I do think, the people that have learned when they accidentally ask somebody when they're due and they're not.
Right.
They learn to just not comment on people's weight for a lot of different reasons. But I have had people just say, wow, you look different, or you look great. And that's a nice feeling. It's like, because I do feel different. And again, not just because of my physical self, but because of my internal self, right?
Yeah. So, I receive feedback all the time because I've lost a very significant amount of weight.
Dramatic, yeah.
And it's funny because I just spent a week with people that didn't know me before. And that was a interesting difference in life, right? Because it's like I sit around and think about BLE a lot, guys. I'm sorry, but like it fills my brain because I think, you know, I kind of live and breathe it. And so being around people that didn't know me previously and didn't have any thought in their mind about the fact that I'd been doing this amazing thing for the last year or whatever, I could interact with them on a level that was blank almost, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how else to describe that. It was like, oh, like we don't have any preconceived of anything of like who I used to be. And so funny is that one of them went and like scrolled through my Instagram account and she was like, you've lost a lot of weight. And I was like, I have, you know, but it was just funny because like these people didn't know me before. So they had
they didn't know that version.
Yeah. I've taken a business trip where I meet some colleagues that I've never met in person. And you do have that little weird feeling like they're not seeing me different right now. This is just, they just think this is, and they're not, and I also don't have to sit here and feel like they're judging me for how I look. I can just enter the interaction just to have an interaction. And I'm not thinking about my body and what they think about my body. And that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and just so different than I've ever experienced before, you know, because I always felt like I had to show up in the way that I did and maybe with some false bravado, as you pointed out, because I felt like, you know, I had to overcompensate for the fact that I was overweight and I don't have to do that now. I can just show up as me. So that's a non-scale victory right there. If I've ever heard one. That's right. As who I am. And I don't think it matters what size your body is. I think that's reality is it doesn't matter what size your body is. I could have had that I mean, I did have confidence, but I could have had more confidence. I think my view of myself has just changed so much, you know, with this transition of my body. So, but there's so much more than the number on the scale. And that was the point of going through some things that we felt like were non-scale victories is just that it is so much more clinically, I think for me, like still number one, I'm hearkening back to the fact that like I now am healthy, like in a way that I never was before.
I no longer fear that my later years of life will be filled with disability. That can still happen. We can all have an accident or event and there's genetics involved too. But I don't anymore feel like I've got this out of control beast that is making my body sicker than it should be for the age that I am, you know, and that is a really wonderful, beautiful thing.
It is for sure. Being alive and healthy for my kids, you know, that for me, that's it. So any other thoughts about non-scale victories? I just say celebrate them when you have them, you know, acknowledge them.
And recognize they're the bigger part of this program.
Yes. Yeah.
And that they're different for everyone.
Yes. And then, I mean, things that other people might find as a non-scale victory, I might be like, oh, I didn't even think about that. You know what I mean? I think it's different for everybody for sure. But I will say celebrate them, you know, put them out in the world so that other people can celebrate you too. I try and do that as much as I can. So that is our episode for today, guys. As always, please make sure if you have topic ideas or questions for us, you can email us at onthebrightlinepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on social media. That's all. You guys have a great day.